Hi, everyone. Welcome to Kristen and Katie Read. I'm Kristen.
I'm Katie.
And we like to
read. Welcome to February. January lasted about a year, but we did it and we read a lot of great books. This video is brought to you from our separate homes because I am still quarantining for COVID. So that is why you get to see both of our lovely homes.
Yes. Update. Are you feeling better?
Yes, I'm feeling a ton better. Just back to the normal aches and pains, really. So
today we're going to be doing a quick January wrap up just to tell you guys about all the books we read this past month, the books we both read, and then the books that we individually read. Spoiler free, just going to talk about some of the synopsis points that are on the cover and what we like about it, what we don't, if we would recommend it, and our ratings. But don't worry, no spoilers. So if you're considering reading any of the books that we listed, you can keep on watching. Okay, January was a big month. Like Katie said, we both read The Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen, which are part of the same series. We actually did an in-depth review of both without spoilers and with spoilers. So if you're interested in hearing all of those takes, I am going to attempt to link my first video. I'll point to both sides because who knows? What a fun time we're having. Let's see, what else did we do? We both read Homebody by Rupi Kaur. I finished A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, which Katie actually had already finished earlier in 2020. We both reread the first two books of the Mortal Instruments series. I actually finished all three, but we've read them before. We're doing a deep dive into each of those novels leading up to the release of Chain of Iron. So I'll try to link one of those if you're interested in hearing what we have to say about those. We're huge Shadowhunter fans. Right. And that's all that we read together. Katie, what did you read?
So I started the year off with Fable, and then I read the girl from Widow Hills, not the widow from Girl Hills. That would be weird. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And then I read books 1 and 2 of the Bromance book club. The first one's called the Bromance book club, and then the second one's called Undercover Bromance.
Nice.
What about you?
I read book 1 and 2 in the Bridgerton series. It's by Julie Quinn. The first one is called The Duke and I, and the second one is The Viscount Who Loved Me. This is, if you're wondering, yes, the Bridgerton series that has been adapted for a show on Netflix. So that's why I decided to read it. Cannot wait to discuss them with you guys. Let's dive into our reviews. Let's start with The Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen. So the first books that we both read were The Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen by Danielle L. Jensen. Brief synopsis for those of you who are curious about it.
A princess is married to a rival kingdom's king, the king of Ithaca, and she's sent there as a spy to collect information. And throughout the series, we see who she is loyal to and what she does whenever she finds herself maybe falling for the king.
Oh, spicy! Ooh. I just really adore this series. I saw it all over Instagram a lot, and I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna pick this book up, and it did not disappoint. I do think sometimes when a novel or a series has a lot of hype, I don't know what, when I go into a book with expectations, obviously it's just not a pure palette than when you just read something out of the blue and fall in love with it by chance. I just adore these characters. She's such a strong female, and he is such an interesting lead male, and I cannot wait to see where this series goes beyond the initial duology within this world.
So what's your ranking?
I would give it a Goodreads 5 out of 5 and a 10 out of 10, baby. Straight to the top of my chart.
Absolutely, I agree. This is a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads, 10 out of 10 in our ranking, in our hearts. I love this series. I cannot wait for book 3.
So if you're a fan of enemies to lovers first and foremost, I think this is absolutely a book for you. If you like that spy thriller element, I'm not going to say this is like an espionage book, but there's definitely an element of that spy piece in it.
I would call it palace intrigue.
Oh, coming from the English teacher. I did not know that was a genre. You know, it's not really, I don't feel like I can compare it to anything. I mean, it definitely has the normal enemies to lovers stuff in it, but it's not super heavy. Like there's no magic. It's not heavy fantasy. It's just a world that we don't know. So I like that. Book 3 was Homebody by Rupi Kaur. So this is Rupi Kaur's 3rd collection of poetry. And I think both of us have read her first 2. I'm not a huge poetry reader. I don't just commonly seek it out. I love it. I think it's beautiful. It's just not something I always seek out. So when I saw this when we were at Barnes & Noble and I saw this on the shelf, I just had to pick it up. It's so simple. Like her entire collection is very simple, easy to read, and it's just very relatable. I think for anyone, but especially females, it's just very in the moment. And you can just find yourself really identifying with a lot of the things and internal doubts that she has about herself.
Yeah, absolutely. This book, she definitely explores more so like her past, present, and potential self. So it really is a exploration inward, which I think we all took and needed during 2020.
For sure.
Being at home. So yeah, also fun fact, I just learned, and I didn't know this before, she self-published her first book.
I did know that because I follow her on Instagram. I also love, she shares all of her work on Instagram. She essentially posts like a new poem from one of her books every single day. And I really like that. And she's just, from what her family's gone through and stuff that no person should go through, she's gone through like tenfold. It's just, she's a very strong person, and I think it's a short read. Like you can sit down and finish this in one sitting. So I would give it a 5 out of 5 on my Goodreads ratings. I'd probably say a 9 out of 10 on my 10 for rating, whatever we're calling.
Yeah, I would say I actually gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads and like 8.5 out of 10 for me. It's so hard, and I struggle with this whenever I like fall in love with an author. I just tend to compare it back to their other work. Milk and Honey hit so hard.
Yeah.
It was by far my favorite book of poetry. And so that's the only reason. But I still am so excited to read her work. Clearly we both buy it without question when we see her name. We
100%.
buy her stuff. So I mean, I don't want it to seem negative at all. 4 out of 5 is still really good. It was hard.
Yeah, Milk and Honey is definitely my favorite for sure. Homebody, maybe just because we're still in the pandemic that it almost hit a little too close to home. It just still feels very in the moment that maybe like upon reflection, I might enjoy it even more than I did this time. Book number 4 was that I read in January, Katie read, I think in December, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer
Armentrout.
Wow, folks. Okay, there's a lot to like go into. This is the sequel to From Blood and Ash. This is book 2. Book 3 is about to come out.
A Crown of Gilded Bones.
A Crown of Gilded Bones, which sounds terrible. I don't want bones on my head. But this is great. This is definitely high fantasy. I mean, high romance. This is peak romance. If you are a fan of like Sarah J. Maas type style with the fantasy and romance element, like the balance of romance and fantasy to me feels the same. Personal taste, I like it better. I like this world better, and I like these characters better. So this only will elevate. It's kind of got a little bit of a vampire spin. So if those are things you're interested in, but essentially it's a girl who doesn't know anything about the world, and guess what? Through her eyes, you see the world is not what she thought it was. She falls for somebody that she probably shouldn't be falling for. All of those great things. Enemies to lovers, betrayal.
Palace intrigue.
Poetry murder. Okay, so that brings me to Goodreads ratings. Katie.
Oh, this is a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, home run. Nailed it. I love this book.
Wow.
I loved this book more than the first book, which I loved the first book. So, I mean, I consumed this book. It was like my life for the 2 days it took me to read it.
Which is wild. This is a big book, folks. So if you're reading it, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but this is a thick novel.
Yeah.
I would say my Goodreads rating would be a 5 out of 5. I would do a 9 out of 10. I definitely like this one more than the first one because we know a lot more. The first one felt like kind of slow at the beginning and then a huge information dump at the end. And I loved all the information. It's just, now that I know it, I can't see myself really revisiting it because I don't like it when she doesn't know everything. I like this one. They're on a journey into the world. You also meet more characters. I love that. And I think the reason I like this one more is because it's not going to be a trilogy, I don't believe. I think there's going to be more books. So I think in a trilogy, generally the second one kind of feels like it's just there to serve a purpose. And I didn't feel that way. Like it's just a bridge between this one. And this book does not feel like that.
It definitely like worries me that there isn't just going to be one more book because I do love an ending, but I also love it when stories continue. So very excited.
Books 5 and 6, baby. City of Bones and City of Ash. I actually read City of Glass as well. I think we both read 8 books this month, but Mortal Instruments reread, as we mentioned before, we're doing a deep dive. So check out those videos if you're interested. But urban fantasy, if anybody hasn't read it, it's about a race. It's the human race, but it's humans that have angel blood. They're called Nephilim and they hunt demons. So super cool spin on fantasy stuff, like more of the angel side of things. Whereas we live in a heavy world with fairies, like there's fairies in this, but they're so different to me. I love it.
Agreed.
I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm sure you've always been told this by if you're watching this, read these books. Read them. It's not too late. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10.
We actually have an entire video about how it's not too late to jump in.
Oh,
Shadowhunters.
these books are so relevant to today. She could not have planned it even better if she wanted to. So if you like hilarious teenagers, coming of age stories, fantasy, a book that is very well balanced between character development and action, this is the book for you. In fact, you will not read funnier teenagers. So look no further. This is it. Know while you read it that this is the funniest it will ever be. Okay. I just think once I read this, I had such high hopes for YA fantasy that nothing lived up for so long. And then I just realized that I just read one of the best series of all time.
Yeah, agreed. I actually just finished City of Glass like 2 nights ago. So
That's
I guess
in
it was
January, Katie.
No, it's February 3rd.
Oh, okay. You finished it on the 1st.
Yeah. So it's technically my first book of February. This is the funniest. And he's even funnier like when in peril. So even though he makes appearances in like other series, he's never as funny as he is in these 3 books.
It's an iconic stretch of just every time he opens his mouth. I want to say that this would be a boy I wouldn't be interested in, but that would be a lie.
Jace is so my type. It hurts. Like, Jace is the epitome of whenever I was in high school, I was like, so this is the man I will marry.
Yeah. Wow. It's funny now, knowing our husbands, but
totally.
Amazing. Okay, so I read book 1 and 2 in the Bridgerton book series by Julie Quinn. Yes, that Bridgerton series, the one being adapted for Netflix. That's the only reason I started reading it, because I am obsessed. I've watched it all the way through twice, and some episodes I've already rewatched again. I love the wedding episode so much. I just start there and just love it. Book 1, The Duke and I, and book 2, The Viscount Who Loved Me. Book 1 is primarily told from Daphne's perspective. As she is thinking about finding a husband. She really needs a husband as a woman in that time period. She thinks a little bit about the injustice of it all, but she's not as bold as she is in the show. She does still have some flares, and some of the scenes or lines are taken from the book. And they're sometimes put in different places, but I really like all the changes that the TV show makes. Simon is not nearly as great as he is in the show. He's a lot more, his general plot line's the same. He doesn't want to marry because he wants to just get back at his dead father, which again is silly. He still has the same motives, but he's a lot more possessive in the sense like, this is what I'm owed as a man in this title and you're my wife kind of a thing. And it's very true to the time period. I'm not saying that, you know, we need to go change history. It is how it was, but he doesn't even think, if his mind has changed later in the book, I wish we heard it. Like, I wish as he fell in love with Daphne, we got to hear him think and change his mind on some things. Like, there's definitely things said at the beginning that I'm like, oh, this will come up later and it'll show their growth. And it just doesn't necessarily happen in the book. So that's The Duke and I, book 2, The Viscount Who Loved Me. I was super intrigued to read this because I'm assuming that season 2 will be a little bit about this. So stay tuned. We'll probably do a video where we talk more about the books and the TV show comparison, especially as season 2, I'm sure, has been announced. It's like the most viewed show on Netflix ever. So I would give The Duke and I a 3 out of 5 and honestly a 6 out of 10. I did not love the book. Daisey, I don't know her feelings on it. Is this positive or negative?
She's fine.
I would give The Viscount Who Loved Me a 7 out of 10, and I'd a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. A 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, and probably a 7 out of 10 on the Tim first scale. If you like romance novels and period pieces, this is for you. If you love the TV show, this book will not hold up to that. So
I read Fable by Adrienne Young, and Fable is a story of the ocean and survival and finding yourself and your way in the world. Fable is the name of the main character, which I love. I love her name. And she is stranded on a dangerous island with lowlives and criminals and has to find her way off the island to claim what is rightfully hers. And she obviously encounters some really great people on her way to find herself. And I love the ensemble, especially West, who is great and dreamy, and I love him. So I gave this a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. I really liked it. It was more of a 9 out of 10 for me. My only complaint is that there was not enough romance, but I'm sure that doesn't bother a lot of people because there is a love story, and there's just a lot to like about all the characters. So that's fine. I prefer more romantic
I think you and I both like probably above average amounts of romance in a story.
Yeah. And I will say that the romance in this feels a little bit rushed. I like frequent smaller scenes rather than this book kind of gives them to you. Oh, here's like one big one, and then here's a big one, and then they're like, you know what I mean? So
I like banter ongoing the whole time. Yes, yeah. I see exactly what you're saying. Okay, should we do a deep dive of it? Should I read it since I said I was going to?
100% you should read this. If you like books about like ship life or survival adventure books, this is definitely a book that I recommend for you. Also, it's just a great YA book. It's really awesome.
Love it.
I also read The Girl from Willow Hills by Megan Miranda. I love Megan Miranda. She's an author that I buy on site. So I was really, really excited about this one. A woman whose tragic past seems to be coming back to haunt her, wakes up next to a dead body in her front yard after she's sleptwalked. And so she's not really sure who the man is, if she killed him, and how he's connected to her at all. And the people in her life seem to not be who she thinks she is, or who she thinks they are. So this was not my favorite Megan Miranda book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. It's an 8 out of 10 for my personal taste. again, there's no romance. That's a personal thing for me. But also, again, falling into the hole of comparing works. This just isn't my favorite from her. It's still really good. I would still recommend it. Also, something I really like that she does at the beginning of every chapter, she puts a news clip, interview with somebody on the scene from like going back to her childhood through to her present.
Ooh.
And so it's really interesting. Yeah, it gives you like other perspectives really quickly and kind of like orients you in what happened in her past to what's going on now. So
that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah, so if you like mystery thrillers, I definitely suggest this one. If you haven't read Megan Miranda yet, go read All the Missing Girls. It's so good. It's so good.
You've been trying to get me to read that book for probably a year now.
I think for like 3 years, Kristen. I love this book.
Am I about to put it on the February TBR?
You absolutely
Are you convincing me to read everything you read this month? My God.
Yeah, basically, because you're also reading the next book. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Reed Jenkins was definitely hands down my favorite read of the month. It was so surprising, and honestly the thing that is the most compelling about it is a spoiler, so I can't divulge what really hooked me other than the title, and the twist with the title is so clever. I just really enjoyed learning about this person. It's about Evelyn Hugo, who at 79 decides that she's ready to share her life story, including all of her secrets. And she chooses the other POV character of the book is Monique. And she's a journalist who is shocked whenever Evelyn picks her to be her biographer. And so through hearing Evelyn's life story, Monique obviously finds out how she's tied to this person who she's never met and how her life lessons can be applied to her. Evelyn is such a badass. It's so amazing. Obviously, I gave this book a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Evelyn is so unapologetically a mess. Like, she doesn't care that she's made mistakes. She doesn't care that she's hurt people. She did what she thought she needed to do to survive. And I just feel like there aren't that many female characters that like in their old age like look back and they're like, I made some mistakes. And she's like, no, I did what I had to do and I got it done. And I just love her. She's so great. Also, I just love, she's like a 30s Hollywood star. So she's just like has a really glamorous life, and she's fashioned after Elizabeth Taylor. So
wow.
Yeah, so
an icon.
Yes, there's definitely like,
oh, is that kind of why like, okay, 7 husbands, kind of like Elizabeth Taylor had 8.
Yeah.
We're into this Taylor.
One of our favorite references. So if you like, this is my first Taylor Reed Jenkins book. I'm kind of worried that it's all going to be downhill from here because this was incredible. But I'm still really interested in reading Malibu Rising and Daisy Jones and the Six, which I've seen all over everything. So, but if you like her books, this is definitely a natural fit. And if you like stories about women who are unapologetically themselves, this is a book for you. All right. My last 2 reads were the first 2 books of the Bromance book club. The first book follows a couple, Gavin and Thea, after he finds out that his wife has been faking the big O. That's how they say it in the book.
Oh no. You hate to see it.
Since they got married. And
Katie,
so
it's gonna be hard for you to convince me, like, I don't understand this woman. What is she doing? Why is she
I know. Oh my gosh. Okay. So Gavin and Thea are married and they're separated, and he really wants her back, even though he feels really betrayed that she's been lying to him about sex. And and his friend takes him to the Bromance Book Club, which is a group of Nashville's elite men who read romance novels to help them with their wives and girlfriends. And it's so funny. I really like all the characters, but my biggest problem with this book is Thea, because I cannot wrap my head around someone who like settles in bed like that. So, I mean, they're married for like 4 years.
That's a long time.
That's so long. So I don't know. There are other reasons I rated it lower than I would have, because I really did love the book, but I found myself getting so frustrated with Thea. And then the second book follows two people that you meet in the first book, Mac and Liv. And this one's a little bit more serious. Liv sees her boss sexually assault someone. And so her and Mac team up with the Bromance Book Club to take him down and get justice for his victims.
Wow, I love a good justice story.
I know.
Wow. Okay, and that sounds more my speed.
No, honestly, and Liv is frustrating in the second book too, but I think she's frustrating in a good way. Like, she's frustrated with the survivors that they don't want to come forward, and I think that that's it's really good to shed light on that issue of, like, even if you don't mean to, sometimes you end up victim blaming. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really interesting that she's the one that has to learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Even though she's the one like crusading to do what's right, she still has to learn that lesson. And I just think that that's really interesting. And I'm currently reading the third one, who is about two characters you meet in the second one.
Love it.
So, yeah.
So would you just say like anybody who likes romance would like those?
Definitely. And I will say, I also knocked it a little bit because in the romance genre, which I am a huge supporter of, love a romance, I didn't think there were enough steamy parts.
I was just about to say, rank it on a steam scale, 1 to 10, 10 being freaking conquest. Okay, that's our bar.
Wow. Okay, then okay. 1 to the conquest, this is like maybe a 4.5. I mean,
I've read less than a 4.5, but
this is light romance. I would say it's more about the
relationships.
Yeah, which is good. But it's definitely not inching into erotica even a little bit.
Right. For someone who doesn't necessarily love romance books, I definitely need at least like a 6+ on the steamy scale.
Yeah, no,
it's a very interesting look for me. That's a goal for 2021 is to read more romance novels. I'm proudly declaring. Here's why it's intimidating to me, because there's so many options and they all look very similar, and the plot I'm just overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. So it's been nice being on Bookstagram and seeing people like, and you, Katie, like saying, hey, this is a really, really strong one, because I just don't want to pick up something random, because I feel like there's definitely a huge saturation of them out there, and I know there's good ones.
Just like any genre, especially I feel like YA and romance are definitely like flooding the market. Yeah. So I totally agree. Like, picking the right one is kind of difficult, but I have some recs if you want.
I feel like people are like, oh, it has to be this really intense drama fiction to be good. And I just don't think that that's true. Those can be good, but I can't always live in that vibe. I need other escapes. Ugh, I need more in life.
Kristen, what are 2 books that you want to read in February?
Okay, Katie, I have a lot of things I want to read in February, but honestly, the 2 books series, I'm sorry, they're not individual books, series that I just can't stop thinking about. I just can't see myself getting all the way through February without starting these, is the Darker Shade of Magic series and the Golden Compass. These are both series that have been out for years, and I'm just I love these types of stories and people keep talking about them, and I'm loving the HBO Golden Compass series. Like, I gotta read them. The time is now. Katie, what 2 books are on your Stop. What 2 books are on your TBR? My goodness, you clearly have them ready to go.
I'm starting this lovely lady tonight. I literally saw a picture of it on Instagram and immediately bought it. That was it. Purchased. Buy now on Amazon. I mean, buy local, but I bought it on Amazon because I'm stuck in my house.
Right.
It's so beautiful. It's called The Heiress Gets a Duke. So starting February, hot, hopefully. And then I would really like to get to, I don't know.
Wow.
That one was so quick. I would
Proudly
really like
declaring, I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't be quoting Veep in the middle of this. It's too much.
I would really like to get to We Hunt the Flame.
Yes.
And We Free the Stars. I wanted to read those for a long time. While I've been stuck at home, I haven't been reading as much as I should. I've been sick, but still, I'm excited to sit down with that one.
But yeah, that's it for January wrap up. This is our first monthly wrap up, so stay tuned. Let us know what you think. If you like what we have to say, feel free to drop us a comment, like, subscribe, tell us what you're reading, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye. Wow, that is going in the end credits.
Perfect.